Well, again, I think Busby's talking too much. I mean, who does he represent? Does he represent himself or does he represent actual clients? I think these are two separate issues.
This Diddy case just keeps getting messier by the day. It feels like there's a new lawsuit every time you blink. While everyone's wondering how this is all going to play out, a heavyweight lawyer has stepped into the conversation. Ben Chew. He's the same guy who helped Johnny Depp win his case back in 2022. Yeah, that Ben Chew. He's not just any lawyer either. He's part of the American College of Trial Lawyers, an invite-only group that represents the top 1% of trial lawyers in the US. And if this man's speaking on Diddy's case, you know it's something to pay attention to. Ben Chew had a lot to say about the shocking claims in this case. If you remember back in November, Diddy's attorney filed court documents refuting the government's claims, accusing prosecutors of misleading the court. And according to Chew, when someone's falsely accused, they often push back hard like this. It's a classic legal and PR strategy, but the weight of these accusations means any response has to be just as serious.
PR, assuming, of course, that he is innocent of that. I think these are the kinds of allegations that one would expect someone falsely accused to push back on extremely strongly.
And now that Jay-Z is sued again, what Ben has to say changes everything we know about the case. And from the looks of it, Diddy might be getting ready to lock Jay-Z up if it means he can save himself. Now, in case you missed, the recent lawsuit alleges that a 13-year-old was reportedly thrown against a wall, onto a bed, and then mistreated by Jay-Z along with Diddy. That detail alone had people shook because Jay-Z wasn't even mentioned in the original lawsuit. His name only got added when the case was amended recently. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. Chew pointed out one potential game changer, a female witness referred to as Celebrity B, who was allegedly there during the incident.
One thing that leapt out to me is the allegations also include that there was a witness,
Yes.
Other than Diddy, who a female, another woman. Her testimony, and obviously she will be subpoenaed.
And if you think about it, if she's brought in, her story could either back up the plaintiff's claims or completely blow them apart. But Chew wasn't exactly optimistic. He questioned whether the plaintiff could really build a solid case against both Jay-Z and Diddy, especially since Jay-Z has never faced accusations like this before. And with all this going on, Jay-Z's legal team came out and said that Jay never had a relationship with Diddy ever. Even though it sounds crazy, Jay-Z and Diddy go way back. Jay-Z has been spotted at plenty of Diddy's events over the years.
At his various get-togethers dating back to 1998.
And Diddy didn't even deny how close they are during an interview.
Everyone else into it and can have that moment as well.
Well, of course, this is all about icons, and Diddy, you are a super icon. And there's so many photos out there, but the one of you and Jay-Z really stands out to me. What was that moment? Do you remember that time?
Yeah, that was at one of my birthday parties, and I was just telling him I appreciated him.
Let's keep it real. This could all just be business. Nobody's saying Jay-Z or Diddy did anything wrong, but these connections have people talking. One user said, it's hard to believe that these men were so close and didn't have similar interests. Jumping back to Celebrity B in question, there are even more speculations. According to Chew, Tony Busby, the attorney in this case, might have already tried to reach out to her to secure her cooperation and maybe even cut her some sort of deal to keep her out of trouble.
To Celebrity B, this female celebrity who was in that room, do you think this person has settled maybe her claims with Tony Busby? What do I mean by that? If she was present, I imagine that Tony Busby might have reached out to her and said, listen, I can file a lawsuit against you too because of you being there. You were present. You were a witness. Maybe. Do you think that this is a person who maybe already settled her claim so that she would be a cooperating witness for Tony Busby's case? I mean, tell me how you think that might work.
But Chew couldn't help but call out a big issue here. If Celebrity B admits she knew what happened but didn't report it, she'd be putting herself in a tough spot. Legally, she might be safe now since any liability for not reporting the crime has likely expired, but it's still a bad look. The safer route for her, just deny seeing anything at all and avoid getting dragged deeper into the situation.
Is dubious for the reasons you mentioned. I mean, Celebrity B, while it would be a terrible thing not to have reported these crimes, and they're very serious crimes if in fact they were committed, but it's unclear what, if any, civil liability Celebrity B would not have or would have for not being a good Samaritan. I mean, I think the statute on that, to the extent that there's any liability for not reporting, had long since been passed. So I don't think she would have any legal or factual incentive to make such a deal. I think her incentive would be not to cooperate at all and to deny that she witnessed any such thing.
Right. Let's get into a little bit of this legal warfare that's going on. What do you make of the fact that Busby revealed Jay-Z as Celebrity A based on what he says was a failure to meet on mediation, that this was a standard demand letter?
Chu also broke down Tony Busby's public playbook, especially how he dropped Jay-Z's name as Celebrity A after those failed mediation talks. Offering mediation first is normal. It's like giving people a chance to settle things quietly before going all out in court. But Chu wasn't feeling how Busby brought the case into the media spotlight. He called it a risky move that's not exactly in line with how pros usually handle things.
I have one problem. I mean, he's right in the sense, as you know, Jesse, that it's standard and it's smart to give a potential defendant an opportunity to settle prior to filing a lawsuit, because at that point, the plaintiff would have kind of detonated the grenade and forced the defendant in a position where he almost has to fight. Whereas when you send a demand letter and say that you're interested to talk.
And let's be real, getting into a back and forth with the media doesn't always play out well. It can backfire big time, making your client look worse in the process. Then there's the whole debate about whether the plaintiff should stay anonymous. For those who might not know, the law on anonymity in certain cases, like allegations of SA, has been clear since 1976. Victims of certain offenses automatically get lifelong anonymity after filing a complaint. That can only be lifted in specific situations, like if they choose to go public themselves, or if a court orders it to encourage witnesses to speak up. But here's the catch. Some people think that protection shouldn't apply if there's a suspicion of false claims. Chu says the same thing, siding with Jay-Z's team on this one. He said serious accusations shouldn't automatically mean the accuser gets to stay hidden unless there's a real threat to their safety.
The public has a right to know who she is. She is the one who filed the lawsuit, put her credibility into issue by voluntarily filing a lawsuit. Who's right?
I have fairly strong opinions on this, since I've had several clients who've been in that position, and I think that Jay-Z's counsel is absolutely right on this. If you make serious allegations of this nature, you shouldn't be able to hide behind the shield of anonymity. These are incredibly serious. I mean, to me, I would rather be accused of murder than of a child. If you were going to make these kinds of allegations, I think you have to be revealed. Now, exceptions for that are the ones you mentioned. If this victim or alleged victim were still underage, I think there'd be a strong argument for protecting what would be a child. But this is an adult woman at this point. Second exception is the one you also referenced, the possibility of violence. Now that's quite real, and I think that's something the judge would have to weigh, although I don't think there's any indication that anything emanated from Jay-Z's camp.
Then Chu switched gears to talk about a whole other situation tied to Busby's firm. According to court documents, a woman claimed the firm pressured her to make up accusations against Sean Combs. For Chu, this issue wasn't about helping Jay-Z's case directly. He thought it had more to do with potential bar complaints against Busby. Still, if those claims turned out to be legit, they could seriously dent the firm's reputation, but he wasn't sure any of that would fly as evidence in this case.
Final update. So Jay-Z's counsel filed a letter with the court saying that this woman called their offices, and she says that she had called Tony Busby's firm regarding allegations of, but she made it clear to them it had nothing to do with Sean Combs. She says, first, the firm representative asked her, when did you meet Diddy? And she reemphasized again, my claims aren't about him. She said that they encouraged her to proceed anonymously, even though she claims she didn't want to. They also allegedly discouraged her from contacting law enforcement, and she said she felt pressured to make false claims about being held down, physically assaulted, and she says when she refused to adopt that narrative, Busby's firm dropped her as a client. And the associate who spoke with this woman, recounted this conversation in a sworn declaration with the court. Now, Jay-Z's firm says this is further evidence that Jane Doe, in Jay-Z's case, shouldn't be able to proceed anonymously, and that Jay-Z and his team have a right to thoroughly investigate and respond to these allegations. Now, according to TMZ, Busby responded to this, saying, "This is so ridiculous. If someone calls our intake and has a viable case that we believe has merit and we can pursue, we will pursue it. We are currently pursuing hundreds of cases against individuals other than P. Diddy. What we won't do is pursue a case that we don't believe has merit. I can't speak to what she told the intake folks to even tell you what this woman claimed if and when she called." But then he says, "We certainly don't need to pressure anyone to pursue a case." And he also introduced a filing where he's going to say, "I'm going to respond in due time with a memorandum of law and other appropriate means," but he was basically denying this happened. Ben, your thoughts?
Looking at how things are unfolding, Ben didn't sugarcoat it. He thinks the tension between the legal teams is only going to get worse.
Well, again, I think Busby's talking too much. I mean, who does he represent? Does he represent himself or does he represent actual clients? I think these are two separate issues. I think this issue really relates more to a potential bar complaint against his firm. I don't know that it will help Jay-Z that much directly, because this smacks to me like propensity evidence, in the sense that, as you know, judges don't generally allow evidence of similar or allegedly similar conduct to be introduced in a particular case. So I think it's a bit of apples and oranges. I think it's potentially, if true, a real problem for Busby's firm. Not saying it's true, we have no idea, but I think it's a bar complaint issue rather than something that would help Jay-Z.
Some sources seem to agree, suggesting this might be the perfect avenue for Jay-Z to trap Busby if he doesn't start moving more strategically. But honestly, even with how messy this case is getting, Chu seems to be hitting all the right points. One user didn't hesitate to comment, "Ben Chu is literally the only professional guest I like to listen to on here. He knows what he's talking about, and he just seems trustworthy and has a lot of integrity." Would you have predicted this dramatic twist in the Diddy case? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because this case is heating up and the next reveal is bound to leave everyone talking.